In a hearing that quickly turned from confidence to complete collapse, today's spotlight falls on a man who walked into the Madlanga Commission believing he could outmaneuver some of the sharpest legal minds in the country, only to be thoroughly dismantled under scrutiny. Gareth Mnisi, the suspended CHAWN CFO, arrived armed with polished language, a calculated demeanor, and what appeared to be a carefully crafted defense. But as the questioning intensified, that defense began to unravel in real time, exposing contradictions, raising serious concerns, and leaving viewers questioning just how deep this web of alleged corruption runs. His alleged connection to Sergeant Nkosi and the broader implications of their actions have now placed him squarely at the center of a growing controversy that continues to grip public attention. You're watching Vox Trends, bringing you the latest developments, sharp analysis, and the stories everyone is talking about. Stay with us.
Based on the raw data, because the raw data has nothing to do with the specifics, that is Ngapeshea's documents.
Yes, Chair. But I can pronounce on the key requirements is by the raw document. I was already aware.
That cannot assist you. Looking at the raw data without comparing with what Ngapeshea has or does not have, the raw data cannot assist you. So to keep referring to the raw data does not, cannot assist you.
Chair, I respectfully disagree with that notion. Those were the sequence of events. I looked at
those were the what?
That is what was happening. The sequence of events. I had the raw document. It required grade A. Ngapeshea is grade B. They had nothing in the documents about grade B. Unfortunately, in this stage...
And if, I'm sure if I ask you, or let me know, and how had you established that Ngapeshea was grade B? I know what the answer is going to be, but let me hear it.
I was informed, Chair.
I knew that was going to be the answer. But what is sensible to me is that you actually had Ngapeshea's documents. You saw from the raw data what was required, which was grade A. And you looked at Ngapeshea's documents, you saw that it was grade B. That is why you are able to refer to the documents, which in context could only have been Ngapeshea's documents, but I will leave it at that.
Please look at 535 quickly. Same file 4.
Excuse me?
535.
Page 535.
Yes.
I'm on page 535, Commissioner.
Are you there?
Yes.
So these are Ngapeshea's documents, and the SIRA grading, you see the recognized training qualification as of date of issue, grade B.
Yes.
That's the only place you could have picked that up. Because somebody telling you that Ngapeshea is grade B would have required that you verified. You couldn't positively say, I know that Ngapeshea is grade B, what is required is something else. You must have seen this document on 535 for you to be able to positively state that Ngapeshea is grade B.
Commissioner, I did not see that document, firstly. Secondly, I was aware that it is grade B because I was informed. And thirdly, my job was to advise on the raw tender document whether is it grade A or B. They are grade B. There's no way they were going to qualify for that specific bid. And further to that, Commissioner, this has nothing to do with TMPD1 completely.
And it must be a coincidence then that this document also features in the chats and you didn't see it. It must be a coincidence that it finds its way into chat 357.
So, Commissioner, this was never sent to me, by the way. So I don't have these chats. I think S.C. Chaskilson was clear. These were chats between Sergeant Nkosi and DC Dlamini. I don't have that.
But it must be a coincidence that it features in the chats around the same time that the discussion about Ngapeshea's grading is taking place.
Commissioner, like I said, I've not seen those documents. They were never ever sent to me, even the first set that the SC Chaskilson was referring to. I've never seen them. I'm only responding now because the commission is posing questions to me.
And you remember what the tender documents were for which municipality?
I don't remember,
But they were
unfortunately.
delivered to you. You said you received the hard copy.
I had seen a hard copy, yes.
Thank you.
Let me show you why the answer you are giving is not correct when you say you had only the raw document. At that page 228, there was a message that we were looking at. It could not have been a raw by raw, you mean the standard tender document which is not completed, because in that same message, in the message after Ngapesha is grade B, the very next message from you says, please send to US and request him to provide him with information for correction, right? So you're seeking a correction. You are sitting with a document which is completed in a way that you have determined or you've been told doesn't meet the requirements. Otherwise, a blank document doesn't require correction, if indeed you were working with a blank document.
Not a conflict of interest anyway, for you to be at the same time, around the same time, to be assisting a Ngapesha with a tender, even if, according to you, there was a totally different tender and for another municipality. When Ngapesha was competing for an award within your municipality, in a process where you were going to be one of the adjudicators as the chairperson of the bid adjudication committee, was that not a conflict of interest?
No, it was not, Chair. It had no relationship with the city of Tshwane at all. Further to that, why I'm saying no, I'm just trying to expand on that, Commissioner Kumalo, is that it had nothing to do with the city of Tshwane, firstly. Secondly, I did not look at I did not look at any attachments and conducted a physical assessment of what was there. I just looked at the raw document and provided advice on a key area, which is not done. You just forget about that. So there was no conflict of interest, firstly, because of those two reasons. Secondly, as a result of this tender that was already open. It hadn't closed at that point in time, and I was just giving friendly advice in a similar way where I would get informal legal advice from an attorney. It does not necessarily mean, who is a friend of mine for argument's sake, does not necessarily mean that that is something that I must pay that individual for, firstly, or that is something that I'm binded to. It's simple advice. So it was no harm from my perspective because I was not involved in this tender. It had nothing to do with my employment. I only interacted with raw documentation as well.
For a chief financial officer, that's a very narrow view of a conflict of interest. You, by agreeing to assist, have come to have a relationship with this entity, not just a relationship, but a relationship in terms of which you assist that entity with the preparation of its bid. By preparation, I don't necessarily mean starting from the beginning, but at the point at which that bid was, you were requested to assist to make sure that that bid document was what it ought to be or to have been. And that same entity is participating as a competitor in a bid process which you are going to chair, at the stage of deciding with a view to a recommendation to the municipal manager to recommend whether to award or not to award. It's at the tail end of the process. You basically adjudicate. And you say there is no conflict of interest? In my view, that's a very, very narrow view of what a conflict of interest is.
Chairperson, if I may respond, I think firstly, there's no association between this and the city of Tshwane. That immediately absolved me of any conflict of interest. Besides, I've got no interest, whether financial or of any other sort, whether they receive or they are appointed within that area where I'm assisting in review, in looking at the raw documentation and what the requirements are. I've got no interest in that. I stand not to benefit. I have not been promised any monies. I have not been promised any funds. It's just merely a friend who specializes in these matters to have a look at what's key as per those documents. That's the context roughly on this. Secondly, providing advice when bids are open, it's the nature of my job. It forms part and parcel of that. I try to demonstrate as well that when I made a presentation on GM2 and GM3, even if this was a tender within the city of Tshwane, within the applicable open period, I am allowed to say, this is what you need. Clarify in general terms. This is a matter that was further escalated to the city's war room as a result of items of this nature serving as a red tape, if I might put it as such, where individuals were being disqualified for petty issues which could have easily been avoided had they understood the contents of the requirements of any bids. As long as it's within a particular open period, firstly. Secondly, as long as I don't interact and I provide general advice, which is what I did in this aspect, Chair.
This is different. Oh, sorry. This is totally different. This is your friend's brother's company.
Yes.
You assist that company for a bid, which, as you say, was for some other entity, whatever the entity was. So it's something that you have a close or intimate relationship with. You have said you are close friends with Sergeant Nkosi. So this is his brother's company. Based on what you are telling us, you did not even see a need to make a disclosure when the bids were being adjudicated and you were chairing that process. I'm sure, based on how you are responding to me now, you did not even see a need for a disclosure. In fact, I will suggest to you that you basically do not know what a conflict of interest is if you can have as narrow a view as you have, or as you have explained. Now, can you respond in particular to the fact that this is not just any entity, it's an entity belonging to your close friend's brother. You assist with the preparation of a bid. Is that not likely to give the perception, if this were to be known, is it not something that will give the perception that surely he's going to favor this company, even in the bid that he is adjudicating now? It's on that basis that I say that your view of a conflict of interest is very, very narrow. And I do not understand that coming from a chief financial officer. Please respond.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I see where you're coming from, but I must, with due respect, disagree with you. On the basis, firstly, that within the city of Tshwane, there's segregation of duties in terms of the appointment process, and there's no way whatsoever that I can do, Chair, to influence that process. Nothing at all. I demonstrated how that process worked, Chairperson.
There's nothing you can what?
There's nothing I can do to influence, and I have not influenced.
Conflict of interest is not necessarily about the reality of you actually doing something. It also concerns perceptions. Are you saying, as you are sitting there, that you are not aware of that? That conflict of interest only relates to what you may actually have done.
Chair,
Yes.
you gave me a loaded question. I need to respond to all aspects of that. I'm not ignoring everything else that you have raised.
Yes,
I
yes.
will touch on them.
Yes.
But I needed to touch on the most important factors first.
Yes.
And those most important factors, firstly, is I did not influence the process within the appointment of TMPD. I could not influence that process. My virtue at BAC was purely to provide oversight to ensure all compliance matters were adhered to, not to influence, to play an oversight on that.
You see, my question is not about whether, as a matter of fact, you influence the process. That's not where I am. and you heard me and you heard the lengthy explanation I gave, and you have not addressed that, you choose to address whether you actually influence the process. That's not my question. Can you please answer my question now?
Apologies, Chairperson, I'm getting there. Your load question was extremely
Oh, no, you
loaded.
went quiet, I thought.
No, I was still
I'm
speaking.
sorry.
I was
Okay,
stopped
okay.
while
Please continue, please continue.
Secondly, Chair,
At that page 228, and I think what I want to raise with you is that it's either you're correct or you're truthful that this was a tender for another institution and not for Tshwane, or in fact, it was for Tshwane. And I want to suggest to you that at 228, where you say we need a grade A guards, that suggests that you're speaking for Tshwane, because at that time you are the CFO of Tshwane. So you are speaking, you're telling Sergeant Nkosi what your employer, what your institution needs. And for me, that is consistent with what you do at page 178, after you are given a list that we find at 177, which has Ngapesheya item 2, that list where you are to deal with matters in order of priority. And your response to that list, first you say, thanks Mfowethu, I'm on top of this, but more importantly, and this is what I'm raising with you, at 178, right at the top, you say, this is ours, Mfowethu. This is the final list, right? So this is ours, Mfowethu, of a list that contains Ngapesheya. When you read that with 228, where you say we need grade A guards, speaks to a Tshwane tender in which you have an interest, and the interest being that Ngapesheya gets this contract, whether or not you're going to get money or not, your interest is that Ngapesheya gets this tender. So that's the first scenario, and I say to you, that's a more probable picture of what was happening here. The second is what you are saying. The second possibility is, just you can do notes of what I'm putting to you so that you can respond. The second is, you're correct, the possibility is you're correct, this was for another institution, and you were assisting with completing the Ngapesheya documents so that they are successful in that tender with another institution. But that is still problematic for your position.
As the dust settles on yet another explosive session at the Madlanga Commission, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. No amount of polished language or strategic posturing can withstand sustained legal scrutiny. Gareth Mnisi's appearance may have been intended to shift the narrative, but instead it has intensified questions and added new layers to an already complex case. And as more testimonies emerge, the full picture is still unfolding. We'll continue to follow every key development and bring you updates as they happen. If you found this report insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Vox Trends for more in-depth coverage and breaking stories. Until next time, stay informed and stay ahead.